Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there, so please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money, so check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall, and I'm still in 2025. I don't know about you guys. I know that a lot of people have taken the plunge, gone into the new year with their heads held high, ready to take on what's coming. But no, I'm going to stay right here.
Lagging
and
behind a little bit?
Yeah, I'm still in the past. Pretty soon, you guys will leave me high and dry, years behind, as you all keep moving forward. I'm going to stay right here, which doesn't mean that I'll never get any new movies or anything, which is kind of upsetting. But there's like a lot of old stuff I need to watch.
Yeah,
you know?
you'd have time to catch up and all that. Yeah, that's interesting. See, I'm kind of the opposite, where I sort of, I love this arbitrary demarcation of like, oh, new year, new me thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
got your gym membership.
I got my gym membership. I'm trying new foods. I'm trying, all kinds of new stuff this year. I do have a podcast relevant plan for this year, which is I'm hoping to read bare minimum, and this is going to maybe show my ass at least at like my reading speed, but I'm trying to read at least one book a month, bare minimum, on the subject, on like subjects related to the show. Conspiracies, UFOs, things like that. I have a big stack of books that I have to get through, and I figured set a low goal, one a month, and hopefully exceed that. But if I do the one a month thing, then I'll be happy about it. So it's 2026.
Yeah.
It still feels like one of those things where the date doesn't feel real to me. I still think of 2020s as super future world, but it turns out and I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that the future really sucks. The future's sort of been canceled by the dark forces that run the world.
Not the cabal you thought.
No, not the cabal I thought. Just a different, less fun cabal, I guess.
Yeah.
Cabal is such, you can't like gesture towards like the dark intimations of a secret group running the whole world and call it a cabal without accidentally just dog whistling some anti-Semitic stuff. That's just
is cabal too loaded of a word these days?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, cabal is loaded. It feels so shadowy, right? Like you kind of should probably just lay it out in more like clinical terms than something that has a lot of zhuzh on it, like cabal. Yeah, billionaires and wealthy tech, oligarchs and stuff, and so it's less fun. In fact, this is my other thing that I started even before the New Year's, but I was already like frustrated with the internet and technology. I've decided I logged out of like all my social media. I kept the things that are relevant to the podcast, but I honestly think moving forward, I'm not even going. I don't think I'm going to post to the It Gets Weird Twitter anymore. I just don't see the point.
We can bin the Twitter.
I'm so over it. I hate computers. Which sucks because my job is computers. My job and my hobbies and my podcast is computers. So I'm trying to distance myself from computers even more than I already was.
What's the there's like a text post that goes around that's talking about people like tech enthusiasts have like their whole house wired up so they can have voice command lights and everything, and someone who's a tech professional has a printer with a loaded gun next to it, and that's the extent of their
Yes.
technology.
Yeah,
You know?
yes. And the gun is there in case you need to shoot the fucking printer. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the deeper I get into working technology related stuff. And like right now, my job is also research in a way. Not in a way, it is research. The more I research and the more I learn, the less I want to be online. So you know, and in fact, I had a moment recently. I'm working with somebody who does a lot of cybersecurity work, and they have been doing cybersecurity work for decades. And I told them how I was riffing with a friend on the phrase "teach a man to fish and he eats whatever." You know the phrase. But we were like cracking jokes about that. We were making some sort of riff on that. And the next day, I opened up, I don't know what application on my phone, and it served me an AI-generated T-shirt with the "teach a man to fish" phrase on it. And I told that to the cybersecurity researcher, and he was just like, yeah, put your phone in a Faraday cage, lock that in a box, put that in a bag, and toss all that into the ocean, is basically what he said. And I'm inclined to agree. I'm over it. So, but that being said, I did have to do a lot of internet digging for today's episode. I figured, since we're ringing in the new year here at It Gets Weird, let's do something classic.
Okay. So we're gonna take a step into the future by stepping back into the past.
Yeah. Basically, this is gonna be some classic stuff. I figured, let's talk about UFOs and some UFO sightings. And Niall, you can't see it, but I'll show you right now.
Hello.
I'm wearing my sexy new UFO sweatshirt.
Nice.
I have a sweatshirt now that's depicting giant rock with a UFO over it. This is, I'm not going to remember the name, but I got this from a guy who has like a threadless shop of a bunch of cool UFO stuff. You've seen my shirt that has the MUFON 88, I think, or 89. Yeah. It says like UFOs are real, ask your government, and it has the White House with the gray in front of it. Fucking awesome shirt. I believe the person who puts these out is called B Pleasies. They work on some other stuff that I've listened to, and they, I think, write some things, but they have a very World of Weird threadless shop, which I recommend if you like that kind of stuff. So UFOs. I decided, to narrow my scope a little bit instead of just looking at UFOs haphazardly.
All of space and time?
Yeah, all of space and time. This is going to be UFOs, flying saucer stories from our home state of Indiana.
Oh,
which
hell yeah.
We've done that before, I think. We've sort of focused in on Indiana. I think there's, like, if you're going to be a UFO podcaster, you will gravitate towards where you live. It's just, you're very curious about, and Indiana has a whole bunch of weirdness associated with it. I was reading how, I think it was according to New Fork, I forget what New Fork, it's like research center and something UFO research center. There's something like over 1,800 UFO sightings in Indiana, and that's just UFOs. I mean, we got cryptids, conspiracies, all kinds of weird stuff here. So Indiana's a weird place, and I thought it would be fun to take a look at that. So Indiana's not doing West Virginia numbers for its weirdness, but it's
that's because West Virginia's on a viral vortex,
right,
or whatever the fuck. We get the runoff in Indiana,
yes,
because we're pretty close by, but we're not quite as on the hell mouth specifically.
Yes, this is like the lake effect, but
yeah.
So
exactly.
So if West Virginia is the lake, We get the lake effect, weather from West Virginia. So yeah, pretty extensive history of bizarre stuff, and I have a couple stories of Indiana residents witnessing strange objects in the skies. So I wanted to start so I was looking back in some. First of all, I have to complain, okay? And
yeah, please do take out your Apple box, get up on there, and tell everybody what's going on.
I appreciate that things like New Fork and like NUFORC, and some MUFON stuff and NICAP. I appreciate that these things exist. I don't appreciate that it's really annoying to navigate to their stories, and half the time you find people linking to other stories and they're just dead links now because the website's since updated. Whatever, we got to figure out a better way to do this. There has to be a better way to do this. I have some thoughts. In fact, you know what I did while I was in the middle of researching this episode, and I realize it's a little silly. I did send a volunteer application to MUFON, and I specifically said, hey, I'm based out of Indiana. I have some programming knowledge, because actually on their website, they have a section for volunteering that says, we need database technicians, IT people. We need Perl programmers. And I was like, look, I don't know Perl, but I'm sure I can learn it, and I have a background in this stuff. And I did also tell them, I have basically a decade's worth of research under my belt now, too. So as an armchair researcher, maybe there's something there for me. But and MUFON is maybe, I don't know if they'll, get the email and then look me up or something. So if they hear this...
If you're at the end of the new year and you guys are coming back to the MUFON offices and you're checking those emails and finding out just this episode specifically, giving it a shot, Kyle's going to say real nice things about it right
now. I sincerely doubt anybody from MUFON's going to come and check out this podcast through that. But in case they do, the websites are bad, people. The websites are bad. And I'm sure that there's work that could be done. And MUFON is, and here's the other thing to sort of, I almost feel like I'm having to pitch myself like it's an interview, because MUFON's just one of a number of organizations I would be perfectly happy to work with, by the way. So if you want to secure my services, I will say, it is weird to say this after submitting a volunteer application, but I'm gonna need some. There might have to be some bidding wars over ya boy.
You're gonna start bidding people against each other on across the UFO circles. I do think that it's fun that about once a year on this podcast, we circle back around to Kyle basically wanting to do bar rescue for conspiracy websites.
They're all terrible. There's no good ones.
I just need you. I need you to go full John Taffer and just storm in there and set up. What you do is you send a woman in there to get harassed, and then you storm in and tell people that everything sucks. That's how, and you start just screaming at everybody in front of all their customers. That's how you fix a place. It's. I do think that, in general, it would be nice to have a little more manageable websites.
I agree, and I think it. I'm going to Gordon Ramsay these guys. I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to go up to their, web developer or whoever, and, tell them, put the pieces of bread next to their heads and ask them, what are you? And they're going to say, I'm an idiot sandwich. The famous Gordon Ramsay moment that everybody knows and loves. I really, the truth is, I would love to. I wish UFO organizations, community level, were better. They used to be. So you read the history of UFO stuff, and they're so cool. They're so much more interesting from the early decades, and now they're not as interesting. And to MUFON's credit, they do I don't know if you would call them workshops. They do meetups every once in a while, around Indiana. But I'm thinking I have to be the guy who steps up, says your website's dog shit. Let me help. And I'm thinking I might just like toss a meetup.com thing. Here I am talking about doing all this internet shit right after saying, fuck the internet, I'm over this shit. I realized the problem.
The first 5 minutes of this episode were, I want to leave the technology behind. The next 10 minutes are you pitching yourself to do website work for various UFO organizations.
Okay, look, let me rephrase it then. I want to leave technology behind insofar as I can do that without compromising my ability to work. So I have this whole plan where it's like I'm going to only use the computer when I'm either playing a video game or I'm doing something productive and researchy. And that's it. It's going to become the computer room. I will step away outside of those two scenarios. So that's
tradition.
My plan. Yeah. We bring back the computer room. So, Indiana UFOs. One of the first things that I was looking into is I remember reading this a while back. And I thought it was interesting. Indiana was one of the many places caught up in the infamous 1952 UFO flap, which is mostly known for the Washington, D.C. flyover, where a bunch of people saw UFOs in the sky over D.C. There's the whole angle of the blips on radar and the possibility that there was some sort of operation to, I want to say, fabricate blips. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this a while ago, and I think this is, I think this may have been in our Kenneth Arnold series where we talked about the flyover because it's sort of relevant to that, you know, the sudden onset of UFO psychosis that the country seemed to have for a little bit.
Yep.
I get psychosis is a bad word. People were seeing UFOs. That was happening. But Indiana did not escape the gravitational pull of the 52 UFO flap. So Indiana, we get a mysterious light show. The connection that I found a couple, but one of the connections to the 52 flap I found in an Indianapolis Star article. They have this thing called. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to complain about the internet one more time here.
Okay.
The Indianapolis Star is our big newspaper here in Indiana. And they have something called Retro Indy, and I've run into this before. In fact, I want to say Retro Indy is also who covered. I'm not going to pull their names, but remember how I did the two-parter on the brothers who one sees a UFO and has a weird encounter and missing time and stuff, and then the brother goes on to take the UFO mystique and turn it into like a profitable, business, basically. The other brother just kind of disappears. This is from...
Yeah, I ended up circling close to that again in another thing that I was researching.
I think that Retro Indy was the series that may have covered that. I might be wrong. But Retro Indy is basically like, hey, we're looking back at old stories from the archives. Mm-hmm. Presumably this is a great way to just, add some fluff to... your articles or whatever, just like, oh yeah, we dug this up from the archives, which is fine. Honestly, it's good because the specific article that they referenced in this Retro Indy article, I went and got an account on this newspaper archive website. Could not find this article. It's presumably in the Indianapolis Star archive somewhere. Mm-hmm. But couldn't find it, so I'm just rehashing a rehashed article, basically.
You got to get to it somehow, and I'm glad that hey, I think that's much more helpful than rewatch podcasts. I think that I'll take it.
Yeah, I did find an actual Indianapolis-based newspaper's coverage of this stuff. But there were just extra things in this article that I thought were interesting. So this is Dawn Mitchell is the name of the author, reporting on the archived newspaper article in her article, The Alien Invasion of 1952. So here's what it says. We got reports of strange lights in the sky around mid-July in Indiana. And this all sort of reached its apex on July 27th when 3 flying saucers were reported by apparently hundreds of Indiana residents. And among those hundreds of people, there were also military personnel and police, which, gotta love it. It is okay. Police, it's one thing. It's like, oh well, the police.
Yep.
They're much better as witnesses, supposedly. I do find military personnel interesting because, and I kind of bring this up later in my notes, but when you start talking about military personnel reporting UFOs, especially during the 40s and 50s, we have to remember the messaging that the military was putting out about UFOs, which is
right.
A lot of the official stances that were getting put out around the country were denial. I mean, we formed a committee to say that UFOs don't exist.
Yep. It was just deny, bury.
But you sort of run into pretty mixed messages when you find military personnel reporting on UFOs at this time. So this is also, a lot of this is happening just south of Indianapolis in that area. And apparently these news accounts say that these objects that people saw were balloon-shaped, and they had fiery tails that were, quote, as large as a good-sized house. And the part that kind of messes with me is apparently people also reported that these objects look like they were dogfighting each other in the sky. Specifically, it was over the town of Franklin that people reported seeing dogfights between UFOs.
Yeah, I know where that is. Okay.
Yeah. So we've got Robert Wolf, the Franklin Civil Defense Director, describing the actual color of these things, saying that they were bluish, one orange, and one white. And then people on the west side of Indianapolis, they also see some glowing flying objects over the Naval Armory. And these people who reported the UFOs over there on the west side described the craft that they saw as egg-shaped and glowing like a radium-dialed watch.
Okay.
Now, supposedly, these flying saucers did something akin to figure 8 maneuvers, and then they just kind of floated off in the direction of Martinsville.
Okay, so we have kind of this. Is this all the same night?
Yes, this is all.
Okay.
This is all happening. I mean, so the flap occurs over a period of time,
right?
But the big event is happening on the 27th. So a lot of the reporting that I found was like on the 28th, but a bunch of shit happened on the 26th and 27th.
Okay. So we have some fiery-tailed balloons dogfighting, and then we have some kind of glowing eggs doing figure eights. Am I understanding all this correctly?
Glowing eggs, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but radium-dialed watch, would that be like a... I don't know what a radium-dialed watch looks like, but radium, isn't that sort of what gives those old like drinkware the glowing green look?
No, that's uranium glass.
Oh, that's uranium. You know what? I'm going to do something I should have done while I was researching, but I'm going to look up radium-dialed watch and just see.
In my memory, like I think of like the like glowing watch.
It is green. It is greenish. It's a very similar thing to the uranium stuff, but yeah, it's so wow. It's kind of sick.
I think I had a watch like that as a kid.
If it wasn't radioactive, it would be kind of clean.
Oh, I'm hoping mine was
swaggy.
some sort of safer version because like when you would press the little dial on it, it would then glow. So you could look at it at night. Well,
this is a this would have been in the 1950s, so presumably they were just putting radioactive shit into
that was back
watches.
When you could get that there was that like fun with nuclear energy kit or whatever that you could buy in a catalog for your kid.
Yeah. So, glowing like a radium-dialed watch. It's interesting. So this is a green glowing object in the sky, doing
some
figure
green
eights.
eggs. No ham.
No ham, unfortunately.
You could say the green eggs were going ham, though, in the skies.
Niall, you really could say that.
Yeah.
So the
First just got the idea, you know?
Oh my God. I didn't consider
Wasn't
that.
Dr. Seuss from Indiana?
Oh, I don't know. I was about to say, was Dr. Seuss a UFO eyewitness? That's an interesting question. Maybe he was. We don't know. It's impossible to find out.
It's you could never figure it out. Oh no, he was born in Massachusetts. Never mind.
We got a lot of weird people here in Indiana.
Yeah.
Like what's his name? Jamie Heineman was.
Yeah.
He was at what our rival high school.
No, he was at no, he might have been East.
I think he was in
right.
East High School. Chuck Taylor, the Chuck Taylor,
not the wrestler,
not
the actual
wrestler,
shoe guy.
the shoe guy. I guess these are people from our hometown specifically, but we have more weird people from Indiana.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I mean, like Tony Stewart was there.
That's
for all
true.
you race car heads.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure there are dozens of listening to the podcast.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think our crossover is with NASCAR fans? Because like I don't think it's nothing. I think because like NASCAR can be cool.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I also my vision of what a NASCAR race looks like is basically just a bunch of drunk rednecks in the stands, which is maybe a little unfair because I do know people who live in Indiana who wouldn't fit that description and have gone to see NASCAR races. So I apologize to the NASCAR heads out there.
I think the big dirty secret is that a NASCAR audience is not entirely dissimilar from any other sporting event audience.
Probably, yeah.
You know, there are a lot of drunk people, but same with basketball.
Yeah. But would you say that it is more of a redneck thing, NASCAR? Like,
I think that has been the stereotype. I do not know how that tracks with real life.
Yeah, me neither.
I think that in a lot of times when something gets that synonymous in media, that comes from one of two places.
Sure.
Either actual just reality or a kind of smearing of a community. You know, I never know which way it is.
That's fair. Look, if you're a NASCAR fan, please email the show, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of NASCAR and UFOs. Mm-hmm. If you're a redneck, email the podcast. Tell us anything you want, really. I would love to hear from you. So, anyways, Indiana State Police in Indianapolis, Connorsville, and Seymour, they basically had eyes on UFOs for 5 straight hours. They had people tracking these things and watching them as they happened for a long period of time. And one of the state troopers at Seymour said that, quote, "The things were so weird I hesitate to even talk about them." Sightings were, of course, concentrated around central Indiana, around Indianapolis and whatnot, but there was also some southern Indiana stuff. And northern Indiana were also, like, once the news started to spread, people started hearing that UFOs were happening. Northern Indiana was keeping an eye out for UFOs, especially the one that comes up for me more often than anybody else in stories about Indiana UFOs is South Bend, which makes me think there is probably some military installation there.
Yeah.
So
I was actually going to ask how many of these are near military facilities. You know?
Then the article says that Monticello businessmen put out a quote unquote welcome mat for the UFOs, which is just making me imagine Independence Day and people getting vaporized on top of like the building where they're holding up the signs saying, UFOs land here.
Yeah.
But apparently people in Monticello, these guys put out a big sign that said, "Come in peace, let us talk together." They spelled this out in a, quote, "system of geometric designs." I wish I could see this, but that's what this says.
Okay.
And I guess that the message that they put out there for the UFOs suggested that the pilots of the UFOs should land on Lake Schaefer. So they not only said, "Welcome, we come in peace," or "Hopefully you come in peace. Here's your landing strip." Yeah.
Okay.
And then one of these businessmen is quoted. Tom Spackman says, "Anybody smart enough to build flying saucers ought to be able to read the message." So a bunch of shit's happening around Indiana in 1952. I looked for more Indiana-based newspaper coverage, like I mentioned before. The Indianapolis Times also reported on some of the same stuff, but they have some extra details. So this is a July 28th, 1952 article talking about incidents across the state. It's titled "Saucers Over State Studied." I think you'll find one of the locations pretty interesting.
Okay.
So the article says that a commanding Air Force officer out of South Bend, which I just mentioned, they keep popping up. This is a guy named Captain F.R. Schaefer. He had begun spending, quote, "a couple of hours every day studying flying saucer reports in Indiana." So this guy's poring over flying saucer reports multiple hours a day. And again, this is what I'm talking about. This is an Air Force officer saying this. These reports were coming in from Franklin by the city police, state police, and Johnson County Civil Defense Director Robert Wolf. And they were coming in on July 26th. This is 2 nights prior to the article's publication. And one says that I love this so much. One of the stories, the reports that they got, says that a couple were hanging out at a drive-in movie theater. And I added, this is color commentary by me, they were presumably making out crazy style. When they saw strange objects flying overhead. I really can't imagine a more 1950s way to witness a UFO than hanging out with your best gal at a drive-in, you know? Like, that's the perfect way to see a UFO in 1952.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like the opening sequence of the PS2 video game Destroy All Humans.
Oh my god, I think you're right. Holy shit. Oh my god, I forgot about that game.
Yeah, back in the post-Mercenaries games built around being able to destroy everything world, you know?
The new destroying technology was bumping at the time.
Do you remember that game Mercenaries where it was just like you're on an island and you can blow up any building, and that was like the big selling point of the game?
No, I don't think I played that.
Oh, it was pretty fun.
You just PlayStation game?
Yeah, PS2. You were like on an island, and there was like these factions of people that were delineated by suits and numbers in a card deck. So you were like working your way up to the aces of each suit, and that was like the kind of direction of the game. But it was built around the fact that you could like call in like missile strikes and use rocket launchers and just like blow up building. Every building is destructible.
Okay,
and that was like the big thing at the time. I used to love that game.
It is funny that's so novel, and then but our destruction technology has advanced so much, and have you seen anybody play the new Donkey Kong game?
No.
Oh my god, the game is built around you being able to basically destroy everything around you. It looks really, really fun. Okay. But that's the first game that came to mind when you said highly destructible environments. You're literally like Donkey Kong just is like picking up giant chunks of earth and rock and like throwing them at things and blowing. You can just destroy the whole world basically, except for spots where you can't. But
yeah, of course. The one constant in all of these super open video games,
you have to have an except where you can't. So, an air defense observer who is there's some like vague terms used for people in these articles, but this one describes the person as an air defense observer who is unnamed. Also saw the UFOs fly over Lafayette command post. And then there's 3 women at an observer post at Milroy, which I think is a base. Whatever an observer, I guess an observer post is just what it sounds like. You just like are sat there to watch, the skies or whatever. So these 3 women at an observer post saw them as well. And then according to Robert Wolf, and another police captain named Lee Sloan, this is where we get the description of the objects being blue, white, and yellow. the way so I'm assuming this means the lights. The actual article is sort of non-specific about whether the craft is physically these colors. It was only in the other article where they said lights, which I find sort of odd, because it seems almost intentionally misleading, because why wouldn't you just say that they were lights coming off the craft? It's very strange to say that the objects are these colors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed strange to me.
It is a weird delineation. I'll give you that.
Robert Wolf said that, quote, "They traveled fast. They chased each other. They danced all over the sky. I've always been skeptical about flying saucers, but there's no doubt there's something to these." So I think this is also maybe a description of dogfighting type activity, because they're chasing each other. State police troopers in separate cars. What? I love this name. One of the state troopers is named Charles Longstreet.
Okay.
And then another state trooper is named Norman Mellis. They're driving in separate cars in totally different locations, but they're both in Shelby County. They're miles apart from one another, but they both witnessed a strange object in the sky that they described as looking, quote, like a star, and that it was moving back and forth and occasionally hovering. So not standard airplane activity.
No, that does seem a little dissimilar from standard airplane.
Yeah. Wolf also this is the one that I find particularly interesting. Wolf brought a report to the South Bend Air Force Center saying that they had seen objects like this there were reports of objects like this witnessed, quote, at low altitude flying west over Camp Atterbury around 3:15 a.m. I've said it on the show before, but I have to see if I can dig up anything on Camp Atterbury, because we talked in a Patreon episode about our personal experiences with strange stuff, including UFOs. In fact, I think it's the first episode of anything ever on the Patreon.
I think it was, yeah.
And I think even there I was saying Camp Atterbury is very much adjacent to where we have witnessed strange activity. Garrett was in the car with me. I think you were maybe in the car with me. And then another friend of ours, all in the car. Maybe you weren't there. I can't remember.
Which one are you talking about?
Well, this is
when we're driving back from the video
we're driving
store?
to like Garrett's place.
I don't think I was there for that one.
Okay.
There was a little one that when we were driving past the tennis club on the way to your house.
Oh my God! Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
With
yeah.
Garrett coming back from the video store.
Right.
But I wasn't there for the other one.
Well, there was one where it was me, Garrett, and a third unnamed friend driving to Garrett's house, and I think I was dropping him off, and we saw. I mean, this is the one that we saw on the way to my house from the video store. That one was weird, but it was also sort of minimal. You know, it was like a small light, right? When we drove to Garrett's house, this was a big orb of light, like relatively speaking. And it did really weird stuff. It like flickered in and out of existence and would disappear for seconds at a time and then reappear. And it was just hovering. And it was very weird. And it was in the, and like, in case you could make an argument for what that is, this was over densely like forested area where no lights are supposed to be. So that to me is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but it's also very much adjacent to Camp Atterbury. So, you know, I have my suspicions, but I don't know what that was. Captain Schaefer also gets detailed reports from Cairo, Indiana, 10 miles north of Lafayette. And Larry O'Connor, the officer stationed at that location, not only witnessed the objects that seemed to be a part of this highly concentrated flap, but his report says that he had been seeing them off and on in the sky since the 18th. And remember, these reports are coming in on the 26th. So he had been witnessing UFOs for over a week in the lead up to the big flap night.
Damn. Okay.
So some shit was going down in Indiana.
That's like... I feel like I wish anytime there was stuff like that, when someone's like, this is the night where the big stuff happened, I'd been seeing a bunch of stuff. I always want to know, like, what all have you seen in the week before?
Yeah.
Like, because all these things do that, where it's like someone happened to see stuff in the days leading up to it, and they never go into what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just that he had seen weird light, like notably strange lights. It's hard. I don't even think you could like dig into microfiche to, because I think this is just how these things get reported, right? Like you'd have to be there and talk to the person who supposedly saw a lot of these things to
Yeah.
really get a full understanding, because this is also like we're rich in these resources that have terrible websites that now have like detailed reports that have been saved from previous decades, going back as far as the 60s and 70s, but the 50s, it's all based on the reporting that came out in articles a lot of the time, unless it's a big event where you had a big name there to record and talk and interview and stuff. You just had more of those people as time went on, and so more things get saved, right? But I think the 50s it's still a relatively fresh, even though it is by 1952, UFOs are flying saucers are a big deal. It's still sometimes hard to find details on these one-off stories, which is a shame. I would love to know what this guy saw, Larry O'Connor. So all of this reporting in the Indianapolis Times of Indiana-based UFOs, this comes out alongside a report about the Big Flap in D.C. and the Air Force response to it, something, like I said, we're pretty familiar with on the show. I think the Kenneth Arnold episodes are where we talk about the flap. I can't remember if we have an episode dedicated to the 52 DC flap, but we might. We've been doing this for a while. So what I find interesting about this, though, is, like I said, it's always interesting to see Air Force response and military response to this, because in the article alongside the one that I just talked about, an Air Force spokesman is quoted in the article saying, quote, "We have no concrete evidence that they are flying saucers. Conversely, we have no concrete evidence that they are not flying saucers." At the same time, that, like, okay, that's fine, right? To say we don't know what this is, that is a lot of the messaging too, where you see the Air Force saying we're not sure what's going on. But you will find statements where they're like, it's not flying saucers.
Yeah.
Here we're in that period where they're like, maybe it's flying saucers. We don't know. It leaves the space very open, which is very funny.
It doesn't. They weren't. Sometimes they're trying to avoid creating any sort of narrative,
right?
And it was just like the less information anyone has about this, the more likely it is that it blows over. You know,
like I'm poking fun at the Air Force and this stuff, but it's very much a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, where the narrative is going to happen among the public regardless of what statement you issue. If you decide to not comment, that's going to develop a story. If you decide to say it's not flying saucers, that will develop a story. If you say it might be flying saucers but we don't know what that is, it's going to develop a story. And all of it kind of tends to make the Air Force look either bad or, which is, I think we talked about this, how the Air Force was, I think, in contention with the Navy, I want to say. This is, again, I think the Kenneth Arnold episodes. How, like, there was some interfaction infighting between these organizations, and there was also people who didn't want to fuck around with the UFO stuff. They just didn't care. They didn't want to deal with it. And sometimes there is this suggestion that there were people in other military outfits who wanted to make the Air Force look bad because of this infighting stuff that was happening.
Yeah, there's some like political backroom kind of like nonsense happening.
Yeah, which is so funny. It's so funny how it's the same thing like when I started reading stories about how some UFO investigations, when when one of the big organizations gets involved, people want the scoop. People, we talked about this with like some Gray Barker stuff. People want the scoop, and they might fuck with you to get it. And it's very funny how often you will read these anecdotes that you can't conclusively say, oh, okay, that's what happened here, but there would be like good reason to fuck with another UFO organization's investigation to try and get the scoop before them or whatever. And but a lot of the times what results is it just contaminates the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what happens with the military trying to give a statement on these things. It's like it's contaminated from the start no matter what. And I think, you could maybe even find some evidence that the other organizations, the other factions that are pissed off at the Air Force are kind of forced. I remember they were kind of having their hand forced by reports of UFOs being thrown on their desks and stuff, so, or like somebody made a public statement about UFOs and so it is just funny to see interfaction politicking fuck up UFO stories.
It's wild how whenever you're looking at any point in history, you kind of have to try to take into account how petty humanity is when you're looking at any story, because so much of this, like, you can look at the fantastical story that people will want to put around it, or you can look at the kind of backstabbing, political squabbling going on between two governmental organizations trying to throw each other under the bus. And they're both they both explain what's happening. It's interesting.
It's funny stuff. We do, of course, get some quotes in this article here from Dr. J. Allen Hynek, where he's pretty much just dismisses the idea of aliens from another planet. He doesn't say these aren't flying saucers. He just says if these are flying saucers, they're definitely not things from other planets. But what I really liked in this article that's next to the one about the Indiana flap, and where they're talking about the DC incident, there is a thing in there where they say that there's a quote from a scientist who asked that his name be withheld. And this scientist, they say in the article, this scientist was speculating that the saucers may be experimental aircraft developed by the United States. This is 1952, by the way. So like this people have kind of had a suspicion about this for a very long time. But it somehow gets buried among the more sensational tellings of things.
Because it's not as fun of a story as other things.
It's not. I do find it so. I still am so amazed at the idea that, like, if the fallout of the possibility of it being a cover up of secret technology, think Rick Doty. It's always so bizarre to me. It's such a silly and stupid and weird thing that it is, but it is much less interesting to say, yeah, they're developing a craft that they don't want the public to know about. That's just boring. Yeah. Aliens are more interesting. So some of the other reports, I already mentioned some of this. I got some other little tidbits that I found in other places. The dog fighting, dipping and weaving unnaturally. There was one person who described the dog fighting maneuvers where they said that it looked like, quote, when a child jerks several balloons around on their strings. So if you picture a kid holding balloons and pulling them aggressively, apparently that's what the lights looked like, is they were just unnatural movements is what they're trying to describe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have no idea, like, I don't know what that means exactly in terms of the theory of this stuff, but I've never really thought of some sort of, like, faking unnatural movements by a cable that the nighttime is obscuring, jerking these things around in ways.
It is maybe a worthwhile thing to consider, because at this time there's a lot of things where, like, the weather balloon excuse is one that comes up. But it's also sort of on the level of swamp gas, where it's like, man, come on.
Yeah.
But when you see pictures of, like, what are essentially spy drones and things that are, like, think the stuff that's spawned out of Roswell, you do kind of get a sense that, like, they're almost balloon-like. You could maybe have them tethered. Why you'd be jerking them around, I don't know. But if it's true that I don't know how these particular pieces of equipment function, especially in the 1950s. But maybe, if you want to get really paranoid and
and we do.
And we do, and you want to put on that tinfoil hat, could you could almost imagine that if these are some sort of balloon-like, drone-like thing, if it is tethered to a rope or a string or whatever, what if they did just go like, oh, we've got reports of UFOs coming in and they're clearly seeing these objects. Let's move them around a bit to make them look weird, to freak people out. Let's see if that confuses things more.
Because the more, I don't know, the more that we do these episodes, not this one specifically, but some of your disinformation stuff and everything, the more I'm like, you can never rule out the idea that they are doing something on purpose to obscure a more simple solution. Like they're making a zebra out of a horse. They will do things that seem unnecessary or ridiculous so that it looks different than you would expect, so that you can explain it away differently. There's obfuscation through spectacle, I think.
100%. And I think, I mentioned Richard Doty. It's just, doing that is weird enough that you can imagine. Obviously, me saying that they're jerking around, radar or like spy technology balloons, it's weird enough to do the Rick Doty thing, which, as far as we know, he did have some connections to Air Force intelligence. So it's weird enough that that's a thing. It's weird enough that so many things have already happened. It's like, why not do something weird with your equipment to confuse the public, since they're seeing it? It's pure speculation on my part, and there's literally nothing we can do to confirm or deny the idea, but I don't know. I think it's worth wondering what happened.
I love how much early on in this podcast we would jokingly talk about creating our own conspiracy theory to unleash on the world.
Yeah.
And the longer we go, the more it's like, no, we kind of are.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I don't want to... I'm not, like, planting my flag in the ground on this idea, but I am just throwing out, like, what... Maybe that's what happened, because it seems like a relatively simple possibility. But I have no... Yeah. I'm not going to die on this hill or whatever.
No.
Especially if somebody comes forward and is like, I know about drone technology, like drone-like technology from 1952 and spy balloons. Because spy balloons, again, that's a thing that we know existed and probably didn't want people to know about during the Cold War. Those things existed, and anyways, I'm not dying on that hill. I'm just saying, what's this more simple explanation? Were we jerking spy balloons around? Who knows? I also found... Oh, okay, so I found a report that claimed that airports in Indiana during this incident actually picked up weird blips on their radars, which is, again, that's similar to DC, but apparently the Air Force stepped in to say that their radars hadn't picked up anything, so it's probably nothing. So we've got hundreds of witnesses, airports reporting radar activity, and the Air Force themselves saying, actually, we didn't see anything. Which is also odd, because we did establish that Indiana's Air Force Captain Schaefer was actively studying UFO reports. So again, I'm just saying it's weird to look back on this incident around the country, because you do genuinely run into what feels like some mixed messaging from the Air Force. So there's this broad denial, but there's also acknowledgement there. So it's no wonder people were suspicious of the Air Force after the incident, regardless of what actually happened. So that's the stuff that I found on the 52 flap in Indiana, our connection to that incredible story. But I have here another story, one that I found. It's credited as being told by a quote unquote reputable witness. I don't know whose story this is. This was reported on by the Indiana MUFON chapter. And pulled from the NICAP archives. And give me 1 second to find the name, because I have it in here somewhere. But the director at the time that this happened... you know what? sorry, I'm getting my timeline wrong. I have another story here where the MUFON director from like, I want to say 86 to 90 something for MUFON's chapter is a guy named Francis Ridge.
Okay.
And Francis Ridge actually has a good amount of material online and has given a number of talks and things. But this would have been, I'm realizing now, this would have been before, I think, Francis Ridge's actual time. So this is a story that I think is being just told interview style, because this is all told as a big quote from the quote-unquote reputable witness. Mm-hmm. So here is what this person says. Oh, and this is a man and his family claiming to have seen an interesting UFO in Princeton, Indiana in August of 1973. So here's what this guy says. We are over at my mother-in-law's in Mount Carmel, and that's about 11 miles from Princeton, where I live. And it was evening, and there was a storm coming up, and we got upset over there. We had some bad experiences. A tree blew down, and we decided to leave. We stopped at a filling station and got some gas, and then we proceeded on to Princeton through the Wabash River bottoms. And, of course, this was the time about when they were building PSI, the Public Service Indiana Power Plant, on the right-hand side of the road. We saw what appeared... Oh, it's dark at this point that this story is taking place. We saw what appeared to be a couple of headlights. We assumed that maybe they were a temperature inversion, which temperature inversion, this is the another classic UFO hand-wavy thing. Mm-hmm. But then we got to thinking that during a thunderstorm or rainstorm, you're not going to have a temperature inversion. It's going to be kind of stirred up. Directly in line with this was Owensville Road. We thought maybe they might be headlights bouncing off of low clouds. These lights were up in the air. Our angle of perspective changed as we approached it. So we found out it was above the trees. The lightning caught up with us about this time, and a pretty good-sized bolt was behind it, and we got it illuminated all around us, and we saw what appeared to be a saucer. Now, I just want to say the vibes here are immaculate to me. You're driving down a dark country road in Indiana, lightning flashes, and it reveals the presence of a flying saucer. That, Kino.
It's cinematic.
It is.
You know?
It's beautiful.
It's very, I like that a lot.
So, he goes on to say, kind of weird, but the whole family witnessed it, and nothing was said until we got home. What surprised me, of course, we thought it was a car because it was the same spectral response that you'd have received from headlights, the infrared region, heavy in the infrared. As we got closer to it, before the lightning struck, we saw what looked like clearance lights, one on each side of it. Later on, it proved to be 4, or whatever the light was, dotted around the cupola. And beneath it was a super dark cone, which apexed below the tree level. And this thing, the cone, didn't appear to be solid. The cone that came down to the ground, or whatever it went down to. It was sort of wide at the bottom of the saucer and evidently went to a point which would have been the opposite of a flashlight beam. And we kind of got a shock over it. So you have to picture the idea of a beam spreading out and diffusing from beneath a UFO. But this one, instead of being a light, like if you picture the classic UFO image of a cow being abducted by a UFO, picture that. But he describes it as a cone, and it's not solid, and it's dark. It's not a light. So there's a dark cone coming out from this UFO, which is strange.
That is strange.
He goes on to say, he goes on to say, I'd done a little snooping around during some rainstorms, seeing if we could see it again. My oldest boy and I, back in where we thought it was in the woods. As you come outside of Mount Carmel and are proceeding towards Princeton, you'll find a large woods with a bunch of little spots where they've cut to plant popcorn, I think, and corn. Plant popcorn?
Yeah. Popcorn is just a variety of corn.
Oh, is it? I see. I was picturing like fully popcorn being planted in the ground. But, he says he thinks it's corn. It's Indiana. I know it's corn. It was over one of these patches. In fact, it was the exact location where... Oh, I don't know what this is in reference to. I should have looked this up. I'm sorry. Kavanaugh. I believe this is a girl who was murdered, unfortunately. Because when I was sort of looking around online, I did see this name pop up, but I don't remember. But he says that this is the exact location where this Kavanaugh girl was found.
Interesting. Okay.
There's one thing. We've discussed this, the family and my oldest boy. He's 15 now. This is a good topic for us, interfamily. If these were lights shining on out, I would think they were more outside than in, because if there were anyone inside this thing, they would have been almost blinded because the lights, if these were portholes, I'm saying, they would have to be almost blind because the lights were almost the same illumination as car headlights. So he's saying that the lights have to be shining outside this craft because if they were coming from inside the craft, the things piloting it would be blinded by it. It's that bright.
Sure. Okay.
He says, though, that we didn't see any beams shooting out from them as you would on a car. But the cone beneath it seemed to be what I'd seen in lasers, except on a much grander scale, in a different light spectrum. Of course, in a storm, you'll have heavy ultraviolet, which could have made a red appear black, or any color would be off color. Frankly, I don't totally know enough. I get what he's saying. But appearing black seems wild. I guess I could see how that could work.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't confirm that. I don't know what to do with that information exactly, but I'll take it.
So again, this is all quotes from him. So he kind of like goes off on like tangents almost, where he says, "I think maybe there is something here in a beam, like a laser. I think that the U.S. scientists are doing experiments with green lasers that actually support objects. Why not?" Another little injection here. It looked archaic, something out of Jules Verne, like a pickled metal. You know what I mean? I find that very interesting because it makes me think of the flying machines, but this is 1970s. Like, this is...
Yeah.
There's the weird UFO presaging flying machines incidents. I think Indiana actually gets caught up in one of those. There's even a Men in Black style story associated with one of the flying machines. It's very weird. So... saying this thing looks archaic out of Jules Verne and it has this weird black laser is so weird and unique. And I love that it happened in Indiana.
I don't know what to do with that exactly. Like it's outside of the norm.
Yes.
Of these sightings.
He goes on to say, when a piece of metal is heat treated, pickled, a burnished silver color, it looked like this. You'd almost say you saw the rivets on the damn thing. Of course, I didn't see any rivets. It was old-fashioned looking, not streamlined, but straight up and down the cupola with a little rolled edge on it. And nothing ultra-modern that you would associate with space travel or something like that. I don't really believe the damn thing came from outer space. And here he's laughing, and he says, I mean, it doesn't seem, usually there is an explanation for this damn thing, but there wasn't any explanation for me. It was there, solid. The damn thing was sitting awfully still. It moved in from the west, or let's see, east. kind of opposite directions, sir. And then
look, sometimes you speak extemporaneously and you say the wrong thing, and you gotta correct yourself. We get it.
It then kind of stopped and started down, and it was so smooth and determined in its movements. It wasn't being affected by the storm at all. I'd say about 30 feet above the tree level, 500-600 feet away, I'd imagine. I would estimate it about 30 to 40 feet wide. Of course, I'm not good on judging distances or sizes of objects. I overestimate while driving because I thought it was landing or going down into a field, which was just on the other side of the woods. So I sped up and went up there, and it had gone down into the woods. I had overshot my estimate there. We slowed down and watched it to almost a stop, I'd say 3 or 4 minutes. All the time we had good lighting from the lightning. Of course, I'd say it was ultraviolet, and this does make the colors, it does screw up the colors. It changes the shades in heavy ultraviolet. The object was on a northwest to southeast track, descending. Weather was stormy, sky overcast with thick clouds, light rain, and lightning. Temperature was warm. The strong wind was from the west. The initial observation was of headlights low on the horizon to an object at about 30-degree elevation. And the car he was driving was a 1971 Chevrolet four-door Impala. Air conditioning was on. I love that they include these details. Air conditioning was on, windows closed. He's listening to his favorite music. He's thriving. Yep. And he says that the windows were closed until he had purposely rolled them down to observe the UFO. So he realizes that this is a UFO. He turns on the radio, doesn't hear any interference. The engine doesn't stall. None of the things that you've heard about UFOs doing.
Yeah, no electrical
cars.
Interference. Okay.
Yeah. And he's about 1,000 feet from the object. It stops in its movement. It hovers. And and sort of floats until it's about within 500 feet of them, and then descends into the woods. So that's the story this guy told. We don't know who this is. It's so weird, and I love it. It's a great UFO sighting that, like so many sightings, I don't know if there's anything else to find about it.
Yeah, it's unique. It's got everything. It's got stuff you don't normally see in UFO sightings, and it also has no way to confirm anything.
Yeah, pretty much. So the last story that I have here, this is where I have the whole thing from director Francis Ridge from the MUFON Indiana chapter. This one, we're fast forwarding to the 1980s. It's 1987. This is the Corydon, Indiana, August 23rd, 1987 UFO sighting.
I went to Corydon for like a 4th grade field trip.
I went to Corydon for work once. So,
wow. All right.
What makes this one interesting, I guess, although it's a lot of, when you read MUFON reports, a lot of the times they include such unbelievably boring details. So I'm going to try and boil this one down.
Okay.
But basically, there are 12 to 15 people witnessing this thing. 5 of the 12 to 15 people witnessing the UFO are MUFON field investigators. And
well, that's handy.
So they're there when this is happening, but even better, they bust out a recorder, and they get a minute and a half of video footage recording this thing. And I've seen the footage. Here's the unfortunate thing. The footage is not very good. You got to think, this is 1987. I think the reason that they have video recording equipment on hand is because they're MUFON investigators. You're not typically going to get... I think home recording is more of a 90s thing, way more... It existed in the 80s. It's way more accessible to just the common people in the 90s.
Yes. Yeah, 90s is when a lot of solid-state stuff really took off. Like, the 80s started it, but then it was cheaper for consumer goods by the 90s.
But it's also like... tape recording for video is not great quality.
No.
And the problem with the footage is that, so it's really interesting, I think, because it's a very short little video. You do see a bright glowing object. You can kind of tell it hovers, but while it's hovering, you can sort of see it move, like it almost looks like it rotates.
Okay.
So that's weird.
Yeah.
And in the video, you hear people behind the camera go, "Oh my God, look, there's an airplane." And then you watch as what are clearly airplane lights fly into frame. And you hear them go, "Oh, it's going to pass right by it." And you watch the airplane go right by this object. Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, that is cool that they have airplane lights on the same video as UFO lights, so you can, because that just immediately knocks out that's an airplane out of it. It's like, no, because that's an airplane and those don't look the same.
I do think what makes it interesting, and they remark on this a little bit, is that it's very obviously not an airplane because they have the airplane to sort of compare to. The problem is that the footage is bad and small and difficult to analyze. There's even a report from the 90s where they took this footage and did some computer analysis stuff to it. And they have all the boring details cataloged, which, Godspeed. I love that they do that. I'm not
It's very helpful.
It is.
I just would love a digest of it instead of having to read the full thing.
Yeah, it's not very interesting to read these details, but they're not especially interesting, and the ultimate conclusion is that the footage is inconclusive. And this is due to the black level capability of the camera and the lack of referential objects and a background to determine anything. So really all they have is a weird light in the sky and an airplane flying past it. So you can say it's probably not an airplane. Anything beyond that, you can't say as much, which
sure.
But, like the airplane as a, object in relation to it, I still think is cool.
I still think that there's something there. It just does lack I understand how a contrasting background and things with confirmed sizes in relation to it would be helpful, but it's still cool.
Yeah. So there, I guess, the MUFON report says that there had been recent intense UFO activity in the Corridon area, and this is the reason they're able to witness this thing is they had set up something called the Rapid Deployment Group, which is, exactly what it sounds like. And in fact, you can find Francis Ridge talking about the deployment of this group and like why they wanted to set it up. It's basically because there had been a lot of reports coming in, and capturing footage is hard. And so getting a group that's like a crack team that could just be deployed really quickly to certain areas and get evidence of the thing, that was the point of everything. So they send out this rapid deployment group to Corridon. They also have field investigators talk to about 50 witnesses. So there's basically they're trying to lock in as much as they can. This is what I'm saying. So they start an investigation around 8 p.m. that night in Corridon because they've made their way there, and they go in and they head in with their equipment, and they see the aircraft coming in from the west. And that's when they go, let's bust out the camcorder. And they wanted to get a control sample by filming this plane. And then at 10:20 p.m., that's when they see an object that people are describing as brilliant orange materializing. And it appears there very suddenly, and it's very orange. They describe it as almost flare-like, but they also say it's unmistakably unusual, meaning that it's clearly not a flare because flares have certain behavior. This thing's sort of hovering there. It says that the object appeared to be an orange headlight and seemed to be either hovering or moving towards the witnesses. And at one point, the object has a very sudden and rapid descent down to the left, and they also observe it on multiple occasions. This made me think of what I saw with Garrett. Several times, this light blinked out of existence completely and then would flare up again shortly thereafter. And then after about 5 to 8 minutes, the object then went into this west to east flight mode. So it's going back and forth. They call it a west to east flight mode. And it's moving at a relatively slow rate of speed. It's not, speeding off, which, again, that's the weirdest thing to observe. Like, I saw the hovering UFO. It seems much weirder for it to move slowly in a pattern.
Yeah. Anytime something just seems like it's on a loop, it just immediately becomes more ominous.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It just doesn't seem natural. So they talked to one of the MUFON members, Harold Hartig, who I guess was a former radar operator and notably, I guess, a Ground Observer Corps spotter, which is an American civil defense organization. And he had been a radar operator for the United States Air Force and was a field investigator for MUFON. And he observed the thing through binoculars, saw a red light, and also this red light was less intense than the orange light that you could observe without the binoculars. And he reported that at one time the object appeared as 2 orange balls undeniably, with a very small, sharply focused red light slightly above the gap. So it separates off into 2 balls of orange light, and there's a red light in between them.
Interesting.
This behavior's not on the video, unfortunately. Okay. As far as I can tell.
That feels more like a craft. Like that feels like I don't know. Any time you get UFOs that transform in some way, my brain is like, how it always adds this wrinkle of trying to figure out the forms, and what purpose that serves,
Yeah. So they're busting out they're trying to film this thing. This is where they capture the 1.5-minute segment. And they, during the filming, and you can see this on the video, the thing, quote unquote, winked out twice. The duration of the wink out was approximately the same, leading them to believe that the object passed behind 2 telephone or power poles. So they're saying that the winking out might be because this thing's traveling and it's low enough that there are things that could obscure it like that.
Sure.
During the last 30 seconds or so, a small, this is the airplane, a small commercial or private aircraft entered into the area from the east and was traveling, and this is when it sort of looked like it was going to almost be on a collision course with the UFO.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in the video. And this is where you hear them say, that thing's flying right next to it. And it is weird because, you can see it. So it says here, not knowing for sure that the objects were the same distance from us was the only consoling factor. It appeared to them as being close enough that they might hit one another. So the aircraft, quote unquote, appeared slightly lower and closer to us when viewed on videotape, and they note that due to the curvature of the Earth, this may be misleading.
Sure.
So there's a bunch of other details here. It says later, like, nothing too interesting. They're talking about, like, the cloud formations. This is what I'm talking about with the nitty-gritty details. So another orange target, they say, was observed by some people, and they tried to lock on with the camcorder again, but they were unsuccessful because it says it was unsuccessful, quote, due to preoccupation with the primary target. So I don't know if that means that they got so excited they just fucked up filming it or something.
Yeah.
But they didn't get this one on video. And then later on, at about 12:15 a.m., they see another orange UFO out near Elberfield, which is near Evansville, and 4 people from the MUFON group see this. And this one's, again, reported at low altitude, about 150 feet. And as they're seeing it as they're driving. And so they lose the object because they're driving, and as they're rounding turns, trees come into view, and they can no longer track the object. So they lose it.
Okay.
They contact somebody at the Evansville Regional Airport Control Tower and say, hey, what the hell's going on? And this person says that they can't really shed any information, any light on what this was. And it says that, quote, to his knowledge, there is no known navigation light such as the orange lights being observed. However, an orange light could be produced by headlights at a distance as a result of air pollution, but only in the case that the headlights are approaching the people witnessing it. So these lights can appear orange in very specific circumstances. They do kind of say, though, that this thing was not headed towards them.
Yeah.
So this guy that they contact at the airport control tower basically tells them that none of the things that they describe about the lights are standard. Nothing's consistent with FAA regulations. There's supposed to be a rear white light.
Okay.
And that they basically say that it's possible that the red light was not attached, but also this thing appears to fly in this fixed position. And because that changed sometimes, they think that maybe it was rotating. That's what they were observing. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have lights that it's supposed to have if it's, conforming to air regulations.
So it's at least something that is altered, if not an unknown vehicle.
Yes.
Like it could be something that we know about, but they've fucked with the lights to be less visible, maybe cover up what type of craft it is. There are reasons.
Yeah,
sure. Okay.
They rule out a bunch of other things. They talk about how, is this a refueling operation of some kind? They close in on the details of that and say this is nowhere near an airport actually, and it just doesn't. The lights that they would use in a refueling operation would be bright white, which is not what they saw. They say that it doesn't conform to anything they would expect from a helicopter. No anti-collision lights. They make this point where, like, seeing this stuff, there were similar things seen in Louisville, Kentucky. And this activity of lights in the sky that do not conform to regulations, that behave weird, they basically say in Louisville, Kentucky, this is a much more dire situation because people in the sky flying have to be able to see each other or else you can collide. So having something that behaves and looks like this in the sky in that area where there's more air traffic, it's much more important. So something being out there is extremely weird, and they observed very similar stuff in Louisville, Kentucky. So this is essentially what's out there, because the rest of this is a lot of, like, you know, nitpicky details and things that aren't that interesting to just read out a list of things.
Sure.
So they conclude with this. It is our opinion that the object is unidentified. Natural sources have been completely ruled out. Of the man-made sources, balloons, fixed structures, hoax, missiles, satellites were immediately ruled out. This leaves the remote possibility of aircraft, of course, but as witnesses, 8 MUFON people, 5 qualified observers, and for reasons specified in the report, we are not convinced that this was any type of aircraft. Absent was the damning anomalistic motion or the overflight with total absence of sound. If the aircraft and the unidentified object were at approximately the same distance, the object would have been traveling at about half the speed of the aircraft, which may have been under stall speed. I watched this. It's very, it's weird. I will admit it's weird. I think they're probably right about a lot of the attempts to identify it as, you know, any of the other phenomenon. They captured footage of a very weird thing that they don't know what it is to this day. So pretty interesting UFO cases out here in Indiana.
Yeah.
Those are my stories for you this week, Niall.
Fantastic. I really liked that there's some unique UFO stuff going on in my what I largely consider my home state. It's nice to know that wherever you look, something interesting in the UFO world, you know?
Yeah. I wish UFO sightings were still fun. There's not as much fun stuff coming out in like contemporary UFO sightings.
Yeah.
This is the fun stuff to me. So
yeah, you gotta dig back and
yeah.
Or sometimes there are some more fun things internationally in more recent years.
That's true. It's just drones and satellites have destroyed any possibility of trusting what you're seeing. So has AI and, you know, video manipulation and stuff. It's just it's so, you have to be an expert in various things to actually determine that kind of thing now. And it's it's a polluted space, which sucks. But there's a million sightings from back in the day, so that's where I always go. So shouts out to the state of Indiana. Weird place. And there's more UFO sightings to be had here. But I thought these were some really good ones. So
yeah, I agree.
Are you ready for a big question, Niall?
Oh, I'm so ready.
Okay. If UFOs were seen dogfighting over Indiana, what do you think they were fighting over? And a small little side question, do you have any World of Weird related New Year's resolutions? I kind of already gave mine about reading the books. I applied to I guess my other sort of small resolution thing is I would like to somehow contribute to the research of or an even analysis of, you know, stuff like UFOs, which I guess we kind of just do with the podcast by you know, saying whatever the fuck comes to our minds. But it would be kind of cool to, like, I would love to go see what an investigation. I have a feeling UFO investigation is actually very boring to be on site, but I would at least get to chat with the people who do it, which would be interesting to me. So
yeah. So I think they're dogfighting over I honestly think that it's kind of an interstate dogfighting thing,
Sure.
because I think that that's how Illinois and Indiana, and I think one other state, I forget what the other state is, maybe, are going to finally decide who gets to claim Lincoln as from being
Oh
from
my
their
God.
state.
Yeah.
Because everyone tries to say the home of Lincoln, where Lincoln was born, and they all try to like kind of take control of that narrative, when really like the guy just lived a couple places. Like that shouldn't be that controversial, but people still get really like weird about it. So yeah, I think the dog fights are all about like deciding the official home of Abraham Lincoln for all of history.
I really, really like that idea. Um, I, I have to resist the temptation to say that it's some sort of corn-based thing.
Why?
Because it's like it's obvious, you know.
Okay.
My initial thought was like, you know, this is territorial control over, you know, corn crops or whatever. Which, you know, maybe there's some sort of alien. Maybe they can't get corn on their planets, you know, and they came here and they tasted one ear of sweet corn with some butter and some salt and pepper, and they went, "Fuck,
Yeah.
this is." We're all about this now. We, you know, maybe the aliens
it's kind of life changing.
I mean, look, if you've ever had good Indiana sweet corn, you know. And I imagine if you're coming from outer space where you're eating, you know, gray nutrient blocks that your ship produces for you while you're in hyperspace or whatever, you kind of start craving something tastier. And I think that if in any aliens, like if aliens are coming to Earth and they're landing all over the planet, who's to say that they didn't, you know, end up in Indiana? First thing they see, going to be crops of corn. That's just like so much of our landmass is covered in that. Maybe they just got really into corn.
Maybe they did. This is totally a side tangent, but I have a question for you.
Sure.
When did the archetypical sci-fi food become gray block as opposed to small pill that tastes like anything? Because I feel like when we were children, the promise of the future was you'd have a pill that just like simulates the entirety of like a roast beef supper, and now it's like you have nutrient block that does everything you want, but it sucks. It will provide you sustenance, but it's actually a dystopian fucking capitalistic nightmare.
You know, remember when I said that the future has been canceled?
Mm-hmm.
It's I think just like the cultural consciousness moves with those kinds of things where like the future we thought was going to be awesome, and we would have little pills that tasted like any, you know, you get a Willy Wonka style, you know, Thanksgiving meal in one pill. And then when people realize that actually there is no future and everything is going to suck forever, that's when, you know, the popular media started to reflect it by saying we'll get that technology somehow. It's just gonna like not be a fun version.
Yeah, and it'll only be used by billionaires, and
yes.
we'll be stuck doing, you know, Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
You know?
So the billionaires are going to be like harvesting their own children's blood to, you know, prolong their youth, and they're going to be eating gray nutrient blocks that taste like nothing, and they're going to be loving it, and they're going to just go retreat into their little underground bunkers while the rest of us up here have to fucking suffer. But don't worry, because we'll still be here podcasting.
Yeah,
so entertainment will still be available.
It's the one thing that is irreplaceable.
It's true.
Podcasting.
It's true. Podcasting, it's a timeless art, I always say. Now, Niall, do you have any New Year's resolutions that you would like to declare? Sort of like, you know, when you're filling out taxes and forms and stuff.
Here's the thing. I as of like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, pretty much became an entire poo-poo on any sort of New Year's resolution
I understand.
thing.
I understand.
So like I took that pivot, and so I don't have one prepared.
That's okay.
But I do think that there is some stuff that I would like to revisit.
Okay.
I think 2026 might be
the
a
year
time
of
to kind
revisiting.
of reach back and do a better episode, do like follow up on some of the tangents that I've been wanting to go on and haven't yet. I think that's going to be kind of my loose direction.
I would love that. I mean, I think that, people, God, if you'll allow me to get a little introspective here in the
of course,
first 2026 episode, we've had listeners talk to us about how the show's really transformed. We know that a lot of the reason that it's transformed from what it used to be to what it is now has to do with a lot of no more drinking on the podcast, no more, we stopped drinking to do the podcast. We started to realize that people actually listen to some of this stuff. And we also just developed very genuine passion and interest in the topics. Not that we were like passionless back then, but it was very much like, get a load of this shit.
Yeah, it was, the tone has shifted.
The tone has very much shifted. And so I think that there's a lot of stuff that when our tone was very much different, it's worth revisiting to see if we can just try and get an even better full picture of those things. Like, it's probably worth looking into sex magic again, which is the one where we like upset a couple people. There might be like a much better handling of that. So, there's a bunch of stuff that I also would like to revisit, but and I've done that occasionally. So yeah, there's some topics that are worth getting back into, but I can't even begin to explain how much shit I have saved, locked and loaded, ready to go that is completely fresh and new. So, it's going to have to be a mix, but I frankly, Niall, I would love for you to go back and look on some of your older topics and see what's there. So,
yeah. All right.
So,
cool.
All that being said, Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2026. We're going to keep podcasting through it. I don't know. I feel like I once again have to say thank you to everybody who listens. Thank you to everybody who supports us. It's very much appreciated, and keeps the podcast going. Not only just monetarily to keep the lights on, it keeps me going emotionally, if you will. I feel spurred on by the fact that people are still listening to the show. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's really nice that we've been doing this for almost 10 years and people still care. You know?
Yeah.
It's very, very heartwarming.
And some of you have been here for a long time. Some of the people, I mean, I know the Discord only happened when we set up the Patreon after a couple of years, but some people have been listening to this show and hanging out with us, I guess, in Discord for a very long time. So thank you. All that being said, Niall, do you want to take some business and get it out of the way?
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do it upright. Well, we're ditching this, but for last time's sake, we are, as of right now, on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
It's same vibe for Facebook.com/itgetsweirdpodcast. Check it out if you still use Facebook for whatever reason, but my recommendation is to not use Facebook.
Yeah. We're also on all your favorite podcatchers. This will continue.
Yes.
If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're almost certainly there.
You can follow me on twitch.tv/itgetsweird. I do a good amount of gaming on there. We're with the winter months happening, it's gaming season, let's say. So twitch.tv/itgetsweird. I'm going to be finishing that Fire Red Nuzlocke with Colin as soon as schedules free up. I started playing Resident Evil 7, which was really fun and scared the shit out of me. So check that out. Email us, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. We get all kinds of great stories from listeners, and that could also be you listening right now. If you have a story in the world of weird, something you want to tell us, a question you want to ask us, go ahead and hit us up at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. We get a lot of fantastic messages from people. We have some regular messengers, and I'm always open to new regular contactees through email. So please check it out. Just let us know how we should refer to you, and we might read your story on the show. This will also remain patreon.com/itgetsweird. Check this out. This is the best way to support us. We have a $1 tier that's the tip tier. It's sort of like a tip jar, if you will. You just toss a buck in once a month. It's sort of a thank you for doing the show. You get the satisfaction of helping out your favorite podcast. But we do have bonus content tiers. That's the $2 tier and the $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you get It Gets Weird TV, where Niall and I talk about weird television. We're halfway through season 3 of The X-Files, which has been a great run, having a lot of fun with that one. And listeners get to vote on the show that we watch next. So when we finish season 3 of The X-Files, people will vote to decide what our next show is. Could be season 4 of The X-Files, could be a completely different show. It's up to you, but you have to donate at the $2 tier or higher. Speaking of higher tiers, we have a $5 tier. The $5 tier is where you're going to get World of Weird, where Niall and I shoot the shit about whatever the hell we want. It's a lot of fun. And it's, a lot of movie talk, a lot of, stuff that doesn't make it in the main feed, a lot of music talk. Niall and I are very cultured, so we talk about all kinds of things. So that's World of Weird at the $5 tier. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday on a Patreon feed, and you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with our listeners just like you. So if you want to hang out with the Weird crew, that's the best way to do it. It's a cheap option. We should be charging so much more for you fucking people. But we decided to make it a nice and accessible $2 and $5. So please check out patreon.com/itgetsweird to support us. We greatly appreciate it. If you can't support us, if money's tight, we completely understand. Least you could do is airdrop our podcast to random strangers at the bar or on the bus.
Yep.
Tell friends.
When is TouchTunes going to start doing podcasts?
That would be horrible, Niall, and I think they should do it. That would be fucking...
I mean, look, it's... Someone get on fucking Kalshi and bet on when TouchTunes will do podcasts, and we'll set up a thing and we'll all make some money.
I have a friend who tortures a local bar with Baja Men's Who Let the Dogs Out every time we go, to the point where the bartenders will skip it. There was a bar that I went to in Muncie that for some reason had, I get why, but I also will never understand why you would have access to this on your TouchTunes. They had the entirety of the Swans discography. Oh my!
So I put on the Seer in a bar in Muncie.
Oh my God!
And that did not go over well, and did not last very long.
Oh my God, why would you have that? Well, I guess it is just time. If you're going to do that shit, it's time to just have podcasts and force the bar regulars to listen to our beautiful voices.
Yeah.
So please, tell friends, tell family, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show and bringing it into the new year. This has been It Gets Weird podcast, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.